Welcome to another episode of Positive Solutions for Life. This is Peggy Meyer. Today's guest is Christine Howard. Christine is a dynamic leadership lifestyle mentor, speaker, and author whose visionary energy ignites transformation. A natural leader and catalyst for profound change, she inspires ambitious midlifers to break free from the status quo and create a radiant reality that aligns with their true essence. Drawing on her own journey of personal transformation, Christine empowers others to embody success and fulfillment through her signature framework, Radiant Achievement. Her best-selling book and app offer practical tools to guide individuals in realizing their highest personal and professional callings. So welcome to the podcast, Christine.
Thank you, Peggy. I'm so excited to be here.
I am excited for our conversation. And with that, can you start by just sharing just a little bit more about you, your journey, and how it has led to where you are today?
I would be happy to. Let's see, how far back do I want to go? I will say I'll give this quick little nugget. I did spend 17 years in corporate America. I worked in IT at two different aerospace companies, and that was great. It provided so much foundation for me. But at a certain point, I realized it wasn't really speaking to me from a deeper level. And I found this thing called life coaching. And through a whole series of events that all unfolded pretty serendipitously, I became a life coach. And in my early days, I was really focused on you've got a goal, let's achieve that goal. What are your obstacles and action steps? And it didn't matter what the goal was. It was very repeatable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so that was my model. I did take a break for quite a few years in between then and now to raise my kids. I am a mom of two adults, empty nester, all those fun things. But in 2014, I was living this life truly that was on a treadmill that had no control over the speed. It was this fast-paced life. I was married. My husband then was climbing the corporate ladder. It was go, go, go. My kids were in high school and in early college. And it was just this crazy time. And I remember telling my husband, let's just get off this. Let's just shift things. And he said, this is our life. And it was like a stab in the heart for me. And it was really eating at me. And yet I kept going with it. So part of that story then became two wake-up calls that occurred in my life where, they were blessings because I truly was so out of alignment with what my intuition and heart was telling me. I ended up being diagnosed with early stage breast cancer. And out of that, I saw I was not loving myself. I had essentially zero self-care. It was really all about who can I support, giving, doing all of those family things and trying to juggle all the balls and not doing it very well. And trying to, most importantly, really trying to control outcomes in my life, control how my kids showed up, controlled how my husband showed up. And it was a disaster waiting to happen. So that first journey really brought me back to, okay, I truly need to look at myself as an equal to everybody else. I need to start loving myself authentically and not just saying, I love you with a blank stare in the mirror, but truly feeling that in my body. So that was the first part of my journey that got me to where I am today. The second piece of that was during this cancer journey of, again, healing and I went holistic for a while, and then I ended up doing Western medicine, and all is good. It's all good. Toward the end of that journey, my husband informed me he was finished with our marriage, which was like a 21-year marriage at that point. And that was the final kind of blow for me of something is way off in my life. And I went really deep at that point and looked at not just, okay, here, but most importantly, where do I want to be? And I'm a deep diver. I'm willing to look at things, learn things, let things go. And it really became a 1-2 year journey and it hasn't ended, honestly, but the big bulk of the reorientation of my life was over the course of like a year and a half. And I saw so much, came to face and be honest with myself on how I was not listening to my intuition. And it kept knocking, and I ignored it. And eventually something was going to happen beyond the breast cancer. And so through the classes and prayers and conversations and books I read and all these things that started to come to me when I opened up for a new way, little by little, I reoriented my life, and it became one, instead of trying to control everything and make things happen, it really became one of more receptivity and
Mm.
more ease and more flow. And then ultimately of living this way, of course I had to start coaching this way and teaching what I learned and what I experienced. And yes, I was still working toward goals, but I was doing it from a completely different perspective. And then out of that came me writing my book, Radiant Achievement, which is yeah, part of, again, what I now teach with my clients, and anyone who's willing and open to get off the treadmill and have more peace, joy. Well, I like to say grace, ease, joy, and flow.
Mhm.
So that's the background on how I got to be where I'm at today with Radiant Achievement. And then really part of that, Radiant Achievement is really the pathway for everybody to create what I call their radiant reality.
Mm.
And ultimately, we are already creating our reality, whether we're aware of it or not.
Right,
And
right.
why don't we make it intentional, consciously co-created, radiant one? So that's a newer evolution of what I teach and speak about.
Oh, that, I mean, that just hits, you know, kind of where I've been over the last few years too, just kind of reorganizing, like, what is it that I really want to do? Just trying to be, you know, look inward to see what those alignment are. And I totally resonate because I think I still, at some point, I am that goal, like the goal of this, you know, very specific, yeah, of something outside that has to be, you know, very measurable and kind of data driven and all of that. But then you get to there and it's like, eh, not really what
Yeah,
I wanted, right? And
there's
so
no
what
energy there.
there
Yeah.
isn't, yeah. So what are the differences between like the goals before where it was really like, you know, let's hit these things, and the goals now, that what is there a shift in how they present and how you go after them?
Definitely. That's a beautiful question and a great starting point. Absolutely. So in the past, a lot of my goals I can see now were driven by my conditioning. So, getting the college degree, getting married. I mean, even that was such a subconscious, strong program that when I was getting around that 30, like late 20s, I'm like, I need to like figure this out. I want to have kids. And
Mhm.
and so so all of that started unfolding. But yes, many of them were what I was taught by my family or schooling, and were those external, I like to call them those
Yeah.
external things,
Mhm.
right? Not all of them, but I would say the majority. And then as I shifted with this, now it is truly 100%. If it's not coming from the inside, I'm
Mhm.
not I'm not doing it. I'm not
Mhm.
doing it. It has to come from, whether you say the heart, the soul, the intuition. Because here's the other thing that shifted as part of that. If I can say this really succinctly, is I am about not just achieving something for the sake of achieving it and having the gold star or the recognition, whatever. It is truly for my personal self actualization at this point and my
Mhm.
personal inner fulfillment. So, does it light me up to do this? Does it bring joy to me? Does it expand me and help me express a part of me that's being called to express? So it is a complete reorientation to where that spark comes from.
Yeah, I mean, I see it a shift in my own kind of things when you have like, say, you know, a lot of people have health goals, you know, they want to get to a certain weight or a size or something, which is numerical, a data kind of thing. Versus now, when I think about it, I just want to feel good. Like I want to have
Hmm.
energy and I want to, you know, just feel good in my skin. It doesn't matter what size or what the weight is, but it's just coming from internal versus, like you said, external kind of things.
Absolutely, I wholeheartedly agree, and I see that too. And you can still have, because I actually have a health and wellness goal that I'm working on to exactly what you're talking about. Like, I want to feel really good in my body and have all that energy and feel rested and vibrant.
Mhm.
And there's a part of it, right? That what are those elements that allow me to have that feeling? So
Mhm.
that's where then I start to bring in, okay, how am I eating? How am I sleeping? How does my gut health feel? So then I
Mhm.
start to bring in those factors or those external pieces that are
Right.
part of that, creating that internal.
But it starts with the internal part.
Totally.
And
Yes.
and I want to go back to when you said that the intuition was kind of like knocking, but we don't like listen to it. And when you said that, the first thing I think of is like the whisper, the you know, and the
Yes.
yell and the 2x4, you know,
Yeah.
and it was just like, it's knocking there, it's whispering to us, but we're
Yeah.
just not paying attention because we're so focused on the external and trying to control things until
Yeah.
sometimes it knocks us down.
Yeah, yes. Well, I like to frame it this way too, is I was circling around the mountain.
Mhm.
So, there was this little bit of like, I definitely heard it, and I would do little like almost like throwing a stone at the issues in my life. I just throw a little stone just to kind of, like talk to my husband about something or talk to my kids about something. It was mostly in the context of my relationship, full disclosure.
Mhm.
And yet, when I didn't get someone opening the window say, "Oh, let's talk about this," and I just kept circling, and absolutely, it definitely got louder. And the other interesting thing I remember hearing in my head, I'm afraid to really face this because I think my whole life is going to fall apart if I do. And guess what? It didn't matter either way; it was going to fall apart. So I ended up having to face what I was wanting to avoid, and maybe things would have been different. I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that part of like the reality of, kind of our mind creates that? Like, we can think about a lot of things, and a lot of anxiety and worry and stuff stems from things that we have no control over, but it's all the like going down the rabbit hole of what ifs.
Totally, totally what I did. Yes, absolutely. And that's that control piece, right? And
Mhm.
and and all that external. Again, back then, and I have so much love and compassion for who I was, which is really key in this healing journey. Is I couldn't get to that place of being able to move past that.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you help people, or how did you like be able to like listen to yourself, or like, listen to those whispers, listen to that intuition that was coming around, and you're just kind of circling around it, but like
Yeah.
it's just like how does somebody get to the point of actually just listening to yourself?
That is a great question, Peggy. First and foremost, and one of the things I do now is I actually have. I started with sessions where I would sit down and listen to my body, and I had learned a practice from one of my mentors, which was asking my body, "What are you feeling?" And then listen and acknowledge. I see you're feeling stressed. I see you're feeling tired. Actually, I just did that this morning, on something I'm working on in my business, and I was feeling some
Mhm.
pent up stuff, and I sat and asked my body, and then you acknowledge yourself. How we don't acknowledge ourselves. And then the other thing is, what do you need? And again, listening and acknowledging, I see you need this. And then after you do the listening session, then you can take and then I call it an inspired action. Go take one of those little nuggets that came out of that listening session.
Mhm.
And it, like anything, it's a muscle, right? Like going to the gym, it's a muscle we're building. And we can start small, just listening to the smallest thing. Okay, asking yourself, what feels good, for asking your body, what
Yeah.
would you like to eat for dinner tonight?
Yeah.
And then following whatever you might hear it, see it, feel it, right? It's all the different clairs that we get our messages in different ways.
Mhm.
Then honoring that, but like I started super small with like, do you want to go to the beach, or like what kind of activity? Or sometimes I would be specific. Do you want to go to the beach, or do you want to go to the gym? And then see what feels right versus letting your mind do it.
Yeah, because we are a lot in our heads, and our body is sending us messages all the time, but we're not listening to them. But I
Yep.
really like that, is just asking our body what it needs. And a lot of times, health is in food is kind of the simplest form, right? Of asking our body, it's like, oh, well, how do you feel after you eat this, half a pan of chocolate brownies? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what would you rather have? Or you just, I mean,
Yeah.
but we can start small and just like listen and go through those. Is like, how do you want to feel? How does that make you feel? Is tired, energized? It tells
Mhm.
you. Yeah.
Right, right. It does. I love that that you validated that, or re-emphasize that. And it's a 24/7 thing. And I think that key piece is when we validate our body, right? We validate the message that we're hearing. It wants to be validated. Like you said, our body is speaking to us, our intuition is speaking to us all the time. When we're not validating it, it gets louder. And that's when there's these other points of dis-ease are happening in our psyche and our energy.
That's right. And I love how you put like the inspired action with it. First kind of like look within, but then you got to do something about it.
You do. And that is actually one of the chapters in my book I speak about is, when we get into the state of really being connected to our intuition, and I call it this power of inner listening, because honestly, I've had guidance, next steps come to me from all places, my intuition, sometimes I listen to a podcast or
Mhm.
I overhear a conversation and I get a little ping like, oh, that's a great thing. Okay, write that down, do that, And so when we can, again, we can shift from being here and say, what, thinking about it, to
Mhm.
letting it reveal itself to us through our intuition or these other inspired ways. That's when things start to get really fun and there's synchronicities and you get to skip a couple steps ahead without a whole bunch of effort, and it's a whole new way of living.
Yeah, instead of like trudging through and just kind of like, really forcing the issue, you're kind of just allowing it to flow through. Is that ease and flow I think you've talked about a little
Yes.
bit?
You
Yeah, and
got it.
so the I think that too is like reflecting back because sometimes, we have to connect the dots
Hmm.
and sometimes we don't. I know for myself, I should just talk to myself that I don't spend enough time retracing my steps
Okay.
and connecting the dots going backwards and
Hmm.
like and using that as something like, oh, remember this and using it for the future. Can you speak a little bit on reflecting or anything like that?
Would love to. That's another chapter actually in my
Okay.
book. I love that you're saying this is so synchronistic. Yeah, I actually have a chapter called The Power of Reflection because as you just stated, when I started, someone made a comment to me again, it was another mentor. She said, "When you pay attention to life, life pays attention to you."
Mhm.
And that really stuck with me. So, what am I noticing in my day, right? What are those? We don't just go from A to Z. There's a whole bunch of things that are presenting themselves or showing up. There are those micro completions or the micro synchronicities, that the support that we're getting.
Mhm.
I'm a huge journaler and I literally every day, and I've missed some here and there, but I so love writing down in here's what I noticed, here's what happened, here's whether it's a synchronicity or a
Mhm.
message I received, or um, to your point, something that was a piece of validation on the path.
Mhm.
So as I look back, it's like, wow, this is pretty cool how it's all unfolding. And absolutely, I highly, highly recommend everybody take time every day, even if it's just 5 minutes to sit still and reflect. Who
Mhm.
was I being? What am I proud of? And what cool things happened today that moved me along toward my goals, dreams, callings, however you
Yeah.
frame it.
Yeah. And what comes to mind for me is just one of those little, reflection type moments, kind of an aha, connecting the dots a little bit. I mean, I've learned you have to learn these things over and over again, but I had spent a
Yes.
week of just being really, inside doing a lot of stuff. And and then one day I just like, oh, I'm gonna go outside. It's so nice outside. And I'm like, wow, I forgot that I need to be outside more often in the sunshine because it gives me energy instead of like trudging through or trying to get a boost of energy by eating something or whatever. I need to just go outside and spend five,
Hmm.
10 minutes in the sun, just doing whatever, and then go back. And I'm like, hello, like I've
Yeah.
noticed, I'm like, I made that connection a while back, but like you forget about it, so you have to relearn.
You're right. We do need those reminders. And I love the thing that you said about, this gives me energy, which was, I think, the last piece, and I didn't mention this, is that I've noticed when I do those little things, of those little points of reflection, whether it's at the end of the day or whatever that is, it actually does fuel me
Mhm.
because we're so, like you said, we're so focused kind of maybe looking forward or, what's the next thing that I'm doing.
Mhm.
And when we stop to see, oh gosh, look at all the cool things that did happen, that have happened already, and how far I've come on this path, that does give you a beautiful energetic boost
Mhm.
to continue the journey.
Yeah. It's looking at the progress, it's like, because sometimes we don't see it, and we really don't. We're in the trenches. We just don't see it. And it's nice to look back and it's like, oh yeah, I did that. Oh,
Yep.
okay, that gives me energy. Okay, let's do more of that. Oh, this
Yeah.
doesn't give me much energy. So let's, stop doing that.
Exactly. You can do the course correction faster
Mhm.
too, instead of keeping doing the same thing over and over. I love that you're connected to that. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people struggle, I think, when they're looking at this going, gosh, I don't really have time for all of this. It's like, is it, you had mentioned earlier this like, oh, I think self-care was out the window at some point. Is there, what is the process of people having like a routine or something to kind of get through the day, to kind of get all of these things in to help them, you
Hmm.
know, go with ease and flow a lot better?
Yeah, I love that question, and it's something I continue to tweak for
Mhm.
myself. I am very much as far as my self-care now, I'm very routine about it, and I stay connected to going back to what you said, how does this feel?
Mhm.
And I have my morning meditation that I do and journaling that I do. I have a little coffee routine that I do. And then I go to, usually it's to the gym. Today I did a walk, but it is, I see, and again, this is where the reflection piece comes in. If people are really being honest with themselves, like, how do I feel? A lot of times, again, from a society standpoint, I think we've gotten used to not feeling good.
Mhm.
And there's so much more vibrancy and aliveness that we can feel
Mhm.
when we do start to take better care of ourselves. And it's interesting, and I actually had this conversation with myself last night when I peeled myself away from my computer because I've got two big deadlines coming up, and I went and I did a 1 hour walk at sunset, and
Mhm.
I felt amazing. I'm like, you know what, a lot of times it's because we don't trust things are going to work out. So part of this is a mindset shift, knowing that the more we're in a place of inner alignment with ourselves, the more grounded
Mhm.
and rested and feeling good in our own energy, the easier everything is going to go. And things always work out. One way or the other, things always work out. So there is that combination of what is a routine that works for me,
Mhm.
knowing that it doesn't have to be, let it ebb and flow.
Yeah.
I've had days where I've cut my routine down to like 20 minutes because I had earlier meetings or whatever. This isn't
Mhm.
meant to be another box you're forced to live in. Let it flow. But, uh, you know, I think it only takes, people can spend 15 minutes in self care in the morning, starting there and
Mhm.
letting it build. Just again, staying connected to how do you feel? Does that feel better? And then adjust from there.
Yeah, I know, because I think, seasons dictate some things too. I mean, I love to go on walks in the morning for, first thing in the morning. The dogs really like to do that too. But as it's darker later in the morning, it's like, I don't want to walk in the dark. We live out in the country, it's dark enough, so
Okay.
and so I'm like, I don't want to walk out. So I've had to switch. And like there was a couple days where it's just like, I just can't do that. So then one part of me is like, oh, well then screw it. I can't do my exercise in the morning. It's like, no, like I can do something else. So then I just mixed it up and then waited and take a walk later or do something else. But we get into these kind of rigid kind of things in our routines, but we need to be that flexible. And so, for me, it's like, okay, 10 minutes minimum of moving the body, so
Hmm.
if I have an early morning, something that, is like at least do 10 minutes of something to get the blood flowing. Yeah. And so I think if we can create a space where it's a little bit more flexible and you can
Yes.
ebb and flow, and it's not rigid, like it has to be an hour. I mean,
Yep. Yep.
we're so much better off.
We are so much better off. And I used to be one of those people, just funny, it just popped in my head back in the day. And I was a gym person, like not like very consistent. And if I couldn't go for an hour, I wouldn't go, which seems so ridiculous now. But I love that you're really reinforcing that. And it can be 10 minutes. And there's so many apps. Like how many, I have multiple fitness apps on my phone. I could do a 10-minute
Yep.
body weight workout
Yep.
in my living room, right? And I think this is part of the change that we're all being called to make. Again, society taught us this box, right, of how everything is supposed to look, feel, do, be done, whatever, how you're supposed to show up. And now when we come back home to ourselves and we start listening to that inner voice, it's this evolution. Like, we're continuing to evolve. And how can we be more malleable and try something out? And if it doesn't work, without judgment, just say, okay, or maybe it did work for a while and now it no longer works. Just let it go and embrace something new. It's like it's a whole new way of being where we're so much softer and more malleable with ourselves.
Right. Right. And it creates a better us if we're not, looking to the outside to measure up to whatever outside people say like needs to
Right.
happen and go with yourself. Because there's times, I'm just gonna go back to the fitness thing. Is like you wake up in the morning and maybe you're under the weather or maybe you're super sore from something else. And then your like body is just like, no, like, but my calendar says I'm supposed to do
Yeah.
this workout, and it's supposed to be a high intensity, whatever with weights at the end. And I'm like, my body can't do that right now. It's okay. Like do
Mhm.
something, just go for a
Mhm.
walk, do some yoga stretching, whatever. But we have to
Exactly.
be that, and we don't have to just like you said before, like I always did that way too, is just like working out was this, and that was all it was in this box. But now it's a whole range of things. I do have those apps on so I was out of town. It's like, no big deal. I don't have my weights, no problem. I have, my app that I can do this, workout routine, body weight. I'm done. Good.
Perfect. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Where can
Uh,
people find out more about you, your book, anything?
yes. Well, I have a website. It's christinemariehoward.com. And I am off, and my book is on there. You'll see a link to my book. It's sold on all the online book retailers. And I'm also on Instagram, Christine Marie Howard with an underscore, and Facebook, Christine Marie Howard, same with LinkedIn. So I'm kind of on I am on the major platforms, not kind of, I'm there.
Great. I'll put the links to those in the show notes so people can easily access those for you. But gosh, this has been a great conversation. But as we wrap up, can you do you have something that you want to share with the listeners? Just leave them with maybe a quote or something.
Yes, let's see. I talk about and I primarily work with women, but I'm starting to work with men now as well. And I'm really all about this, like us expressing our true self. And when we do, it's this natural radiance, magnetism, vibrancy comes out of us. And how that happens is because we are connected to who we are. We're wholeheartedly loving ourselves. We are listening to those inner callings, or we're claiming our gifts, talents, passions, and desires, and then we're pursuing those inner callings wholeheartedly. When we do that, we light up and we have a beautiful positive ripple effect in the world. So, be the change you want to see in the world. And it all starts by really claiming who you are and following those callings.
Yeah, because once we do claim who we are, like your book is, it's radiant. We radiate the light that's within us all around and to other people. So good.
Yes.
So good. Well, thank
Great.
you so much for being on the podcast today. This has been so much fun, and I know the listeners will get a lot of great value out of this.
You're most welcome, Peggy. This was so fun being here with you.